Welcome to the Gnarly Girls podcast.
What's up, gnarly beings?
This is a loose lipped, unfiltered, raw dogging, stripping down of culture.
No fucks, no panties. This is a labia of love.
We're your hosts, Tony Naj
and Serafina Supernova. And this is Gnarly Girls.
Today on Gnarly Girls, we're going to talk about how billionaires are grape culture. How's it going, Sarah?
You know, just living in a billionaire paradigm as a non-billionaire girl.
I think the thing that's interesting about the concept of a billionaire is at this point, I am so brainwashed that when someone's like Trump's made $3 billion since he's become president, I'm like, well, that's not that bad. Like my first reaction is actually like, that's not that much, which is bonkers because there was a time when we both were alive when there were no billionaires or barely a billionaire.
Yeah. I mean, especially like when you're watching 90s sitcom, like it's funny to look at the elevation of the millionaire and like the millionaire status and just how truly inflated and meaningless the dollar has become in our lifetime.
So if we're going to connect this to grape culture, which is what we are doing this series, we have to talk about the lack of consent and how this is domination, right? So if we're looking at Donald Trump as an example, he is a public servant being a president, and yet he's profiteered $3 billion within the first year. His initial presidency, I think he supposedly lost money. But he's obviously figured out the loopholes to have this be like a financial gain for him. And another thing that I keep thinking about is that did you ever see the press conference or it was like a dinner where he was having dinner with Mark Zuckerberg and Mark Zuckerberg was talking about this new AI data center and how it was going to cost like over $100 billion. Did you clock that?
No, please tell me more. Tell us more.
So the thing about like any AI data center that's going to cost that much, like just if we were to think for 7 seconds, that would be a bad investment, right? Like that is not a good investment. There is no real estate, there is no IP, there is no like argument that would imply that you will get a return on your investment if you were to be a part of this $100 billion AI data center investment. So, and he's revealing this information like very like flippantly while talking to the president. So he's not like, oh, I know exactly how much money we're raising because I have a pro forma, which is the Excel spreadsheet that goes through all the expenses. And I have a very detailed ROI, your return on your investment that I would be promising. The way he talks about it, I actually highly recommend everyone watching it. It's so casual. Oh, it's like about this. I've tried to start a business before. I've pitched businesses. You would never go into an investor meeting with this level of like a confusion around what
Yeah.
you're actually raising, the amount you're raising, right? You would be very clear. And B, it would be so obvious to you like how you would present your financials to offer people a return on their investment. And the vibe of this was so the opposite of that in almost in an alarming way. But what it was indicating to me is that, okay, Mark Zuckerberg is completely aware that there will be a government bailout for this AI data center. So now you have, I think, like this almost like unspoken money laundering slash guarantee between industry and politics where you're not even going to a venture capital firm expecting to have to answer to your venture capitalist investors. You're just banking on the bailout. You're banking on the banks bailing you out, which is ultimately you're banking on the taxpayers bailing you out.
Right. Yeah. I think about this a lot when it comes to the amount of times that the Donald Trump Boys Club and billionaires in general are able to declare bankruptcy and like dissolve their businesses and LLCs and just start a new one and never have to pay back this money. But you literally have to have money in order to be able to dissolve your business and create a new business. You have to have, thousands of dollars to work with, let's say 3,000 at minimum, just like available to play with, and then going up to like infinite amounts of money depending on the kind of S corp or LLC that you're establishing. So, yeah, you have to have money to play within the system. And the only people who can actually dissolve businesses and afford to declare bankruptcy without giving a fuck about how it affects their credits is billionaires
Or, people with access
or
to,
lots of money. Like millionaires and multimillionaires can afford that too.
but going back to the consent aspect of this is that we are not, as taxpayers, consenting to bail out Mark Zuckerberg's AI
Right.
data center. We are not consenting as taxpayers to bail out Elon Musk and his investments into space and his data centers, et cetera, or any of the tech that is being developed. But what's happening is that tech is being developed with the expectation of bailouts, of government bailouts, of taxpayer bailouts. And at the same time,
Part of the strategy. How entitled that that's part of the strategy.
it's built, yeah, it's
Yeah.
obviously being built into it. Although I would assume that is illegal.
To predetermine that that's the strategy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
Like no
seems,
one's saying that that's the strategy, but behind closed doors, they're like, that's the strategy.
it has to be because it's just not an investment that anyone would invest in. And I definitely understand that debt is profitable within the stock market because you can basically um invest in debt, right? So you can make debt profitable if you're playing in the waters of stocks. However, it's like with the put options. Do you know what put options are? So, put options are basically you're going to bet on a failing stock. And one of the ways that people made money on 9/11, which isn't talked about that much, but I think is significant, is a lot of politicians bought put options on the two airlines involved in 9/11. So basically the day before 9/11, you're betting that that stock is going to tank. 9/11 happens, everyone does pull out of that stock, and then you make money by anticipating debt. So there's another way in which people can be making money beyond the government bailouts is by insider trading and knowing about these put options and then purchasing them at the right time.
Yeah, a system built on anticipating debt is banking on people suffering in order to profit, which is extractive, which is grape culture. And then also this sense of like going for it without being connected to consequence. I'm just going to grape this person because this is what I want. Let's just go for it, boys. And we are not only are we not going to care about the consequence, but we're absolved of the consequence because money handles consequence. If you have enough money, you can pretty much get away with and get out of anything. Almost.
Yeah. And I think,
Almost. Or you'll just be like killed and given a new face like Jeffrey Epstein and shipped off to some other island that you took from indigenous people.
yeah. And I think that, like,
The absolving of
billionaire,
consequence is the grape culture too.
and I think the other reason why billionaires are in the waters of grape culture is also in this, like, okay, we're seeing these videos of people partying and people having these like extravagant, you know, get-togethers. And then you're also seeing like Dubai and like, oh, look at all the gold. And like you go to Dubai and you get gold, but all of the gold is being obviously extracted and creating a genocide. So you have this direct relationship of like extracting resources, funding genocide, and using the riches that you are stealing from people as an opportunity to boost, your social status. And it's like a complete objectification of not only the land, but also the people that like should be profiting from the resources of their land. Like the fact that we just accept colonialism and we accept the fact that like, oh yeah, no, it's totally cool for you to go to another space and fund, different militias and put up a puppet regime, and that this is like basically the game of war. Like the game of war in and of itself is inherently grape culture. And then the economics of war, which is the only way we're going to facilitate billionaires. I mean, like, it would be interesting to look at the few billionaires that were able to accrue their money that aren't involved in war. And I would almost argue that it's not the profit of their work that is always like getting them into the billion, but also the investments that their work provided them, which would be tied to war, you know? Like we talk about like Kendall Jenner is a billionaire, or like Taylor Swift is a billionaire,
Wait, is Kendall Kylie?
or
The younger
Kylie
one.
Kendall. No,
Kylie, the
Kendall,
younger one, not the model.
not the model, the one who had the
Kylie.
makeup company. So, like, one question I would have, I don't know this to be true or not, but like, is Kendall's money all because of the makeup company, or does she just get like a certain amount of money and then they take that money and they invest it in the war machine and then that's how she makes her real money? I think Rihanna is also a billionaire.
I was about to ask you, is Beyonce a billionaire?
No,
I
I
didn't
think
think so.
Jay-Z is, but I
Right.
But they could be from their businesses. So you have the women get makeup and clothes, because I think Rihanna's a billionaire from clothes. I mean, we should maybe look it up.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean Kylie is an interesting case because like so much of her visual self and the plastic surgery and how she like essentially rebuilt her face and her body became also this new beauty standard, which then was part of her products selling. You know, like people are buying Kylie Jenner makeup products to look like Kylie Jenner, who looks like Kylie Jenner because of the plastic surgery that she got. So it's like, who paid for the plastic surgery? Like, if you come from this money and this family, like you're going to be able to do certain things that position you in a certain way where then profiting and making more money is going to be easier because like you had the leg up, which is why I was just talking about this with a client, like why Marxism is so threatening to people, because if everyone starts from the same place no matter what and who your parents were, then it's like a whole different world that we're living in.
Okay, so Kylie's not a billionaire, but Rihanna is.
I thought Kylie made Forbes. I mean, but maybe that has nothing to do with being a billionaire.
Kim is a billionaire, and Kylie is behind her.
Okay. Yeah,
Um,
I mean, there isn't anyone recreating suffering, which I think all billionaires somehow, some way, if you're a billionaire and you're not giving away your money like Dolly Parton to like have less money, or Billie Eilish, who was nowhere near a billionaire, but like she just gave away, I think it was like a third of her money, like her millions. I don't know exactly how much, but if you're not actively like tithing away your money, to use the language of the church, or like moving your money in a way that is supporting people and you're just sitting on it, there is a recreating of suffering. You are contributing to other people's suffering. And I don't think there's anyone recreating suffering that isn't also deeply addicted to their own suffering. Like if we look at all these billionaires, I mean even Trump shitting his pants, like he's obviously like addicted to suffering. And this too feels like where you can't, like people who are actually doing compassionate work for the planet that's impacting and changing people's lives. Show me a single person who hasn't had like their own self realization around their need to generate their own self compassion and hold their trauma, who's operating at that level of collective compassion. Like it is connected. If you are suffering, you're recreating suffering. If you're interested in your own self compassion, you're interested in the compassion of other people from this like truly like I want to like give source energy to the people place, which it feels like billionaires, like could have been billionaires like Dolly Parton, are like giving their money away to actively not recreate that same system. Like there are ways to do this, but then you obviously have to be existing within a model that isn't scarcity driven in order to do that. Because I'm sure these people are also living at a certain like quality of life where your whole everything is wrapped up in it. Like you need the money to fund the quality of life. It's not just like I give away my money and then people are fed. It's like, no, I have to literally, and I think a lot of times it's also connected to family. Like I have to be the disruptor within this lineage. And like the paradigm shift is on top of me. That's where I do have compassion for people who are like operating from this frame of reference. Like that's a lot. That's a lot to do if your ancestors haven't done that, you know.
Well, let's keep bringing it back to grape culture so we like stay on track. And I think we have to like deconstruct how hoarding is grape culture, but also, you kept saying giveaway. And the thing that's like really problematic about just like giving away your money, as you kept saying, is that if you're just like there's a massive industrial complex when it comes to the nonprofit sector.
Yeah.
And giving away your money to private foundations where 97% of their money is invested in the stock market, it's not giving away your money.
Yeah, it's like reinvesting
It's
it.
actually just like avoiding taxes, and
Yep.
it's reinvesting it in this very same companies that whatever your
Because you
private
can write it
foundation.
off if you donate.
No,
Right.
I know. So you're avoiding taxes. And then the money it's like if you have a private foundation, which is most of these bigger nonprofits, like this is what the nonprofit industrial complex is. You have a bigger foundation, and in order for them to give away money every year, they're giving away the dividends from their investments. They're barely even fundraising to the degree that like a grassroots nonprofit is fundraising, where they're giving away 100% of their money every year.
Right.
They have their operating costs, and then they're giving away all the money, and then they're having to fundraise again. Like most private foundations are just sitting on 97% of that money invested in the stock market. And maybe some of them are like committing a portion of the portfolio to socially responsible ventures. However, like there is this posturing. If we're going to talk about grape culture, there is this pretense, there is this masking of like, I'm here, I am like giving away my money, or, but what's the transparency? What does it look like? Where is it going? And then once it's in that organization, where is it going?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that that's also connected to grape culture in the sense that there is a graping of understanding too.
Yeah. It's intentionally not simple and
Yeah, and there's a
shady.
false righteousness.
Yeah. 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 I mean, the only time I was really playing with that kind of money is when I was working for my ex-boss who I talked about on the last episode. And I did watch them do that. And there was a foundation that I witnessed get created. And like exactly what you're saying, it's like arts organizations, arts nonprofits are being donated to, but the conversation behind the scenes with the financial advisors that I was looped in on is how much of a tax break are each of these investments going to make, and then strategically making the investments based on the tax breaks.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's like for profit.
Yeah,
Even the donations are for the most profit.
in its own way. And I mean, not to say there are grassroots campaigns, and there is like an undercurrent of like genuine social care that's happening, but a lot of times, especially if you have a lot of money, you're basically hiring a person that's going to deal with your strategic giving, and they're not digging in the weeds of like what's happening with like abused women in Kansas, let's help them specifically, or
Right.
let's find like these like smaller organizations that are like on the ground, like feet on the earth, like dealing with people in a way that is like actual tangible um philanthropy, and not just like another form of money laundering.
I mean, we've seen this with grape culture. I see this with the studio I teach at. Like, this is something we see within the arts. It's like, it's really hard as an organization that needs money to find people who actually want to give that money. And even the most like liberal leftist anarchist people with money, like it's hard to get people to invest in something where like there isn't a clear like here's the return on the investment that you're going to get. And I don't think that there's a lot of donors just giving money without examining what the tax benefit is going to be, which is then it just creates this whole other system, as you're saying, of like false posturing
Well,
around.
even beyond the tax system, there's still effort in finding organizations. And like, again, they're outsourcing that effort
Yeah,
to a person that is dealing with their giving. And
probably
that
now
person isn't
AI.
always spending the time, energy, or effort digging deep
I
because they
mean,
don't have to.
it's scary to think that like those kind of tasks are also going to be outsourced to AI because it's like exactly the kind of admin that people are outsourcing to AI. So it's like before you had like exhausted people trying to navigate this broken system. Now you're going to have robots programmed by men trying to do this. I mean, not our timeline, but also it's already actively happening. Like the amount of times I get a commercial for like an AI assistant when I'm watching TV at night. It's just like this is the paradigm that we're moving into, and it feels very quick. It feels very swift.
T Swift.
T Swift. Ugh. I'm like, if y'all thought that this fucking white supremacist bitch and her fucking album, so when you put them together, it makes a swastika. Like, if you thought that wasn't gonna trickle on down into Mar-a-Lago and all these fucking assholes and the way that they party, I don't know what the fuck y'all were thinking. Because look at the showgirl in the martini glass at the party, at the fucking Great Gatsby party the day before the SNAP benefits are cut. Like, that
But
is
this
evil.
isn't like,
It's not new. It's some
or
like,
it's not accidental.
no, it's not
You know, people
accidental.
keep acting as if
No,
when
it's
there
not.
was that what was that party that everyone goes to, that's like the big party, and it's like,
The white party,
no, 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 no.
Bohemian Grove.
No, no, no. It's like the Vogue party, like Anna Winter.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Like
Yeah.
it's like, what is it? The big,
Fashion Week. Sometimes I'm so unplugged from
I
things like this.
know. It's like the Met Gala.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I hate that shit.
So there was the Met Gala, and that they had like the let them eat cake kind of vibe, and there was, and everyone's like, wow, this is so tone deaf. And same thing with like this like Great Gatsby Trump party the day before the SNAP benefits are taken. Like, oh, this is so tone deaf. It's like, no, it's not actually tone deaf. It's incredibly intentional.
Yeah. It's a
It's,
fuck you in your fucking face. Excuse my F.
yeah.
Sorry. Sorry if there's children listening. If you have children listening to the Gnarly Girls podcast, honestly, props to you. Yeah, I mean, it's also not intentional. I mean, it's also not coincidental that the Burlesque Hall of Fame closed this year and then Taylor Swift comes out with this album that's been planned for years, you know, because she's always planning and leaving Easter eggs in all of her albums. Like, yeah, there is no room for giving billionaires the benefit of the doubt. I'm so, so sorry, but there just isn't. And also billionaires are always going to use progressive and rich people and artists especially who want to like appear as like liberal progressive whatever, they're going to use liberal ideology in order to make you think that what they're feeding you is feminism when actually it's fascism.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of people who kind of mention, Taylor Swift as a feminist. Like if I post something that's, questioning, I mean, her moral compass, people will often say she's a feminist, but like I personally would argue that feminism is not about like getting a throne at the table of patriarchy.
Ah,
Feminism is going to a new table.
yeah,
It's not trying to fit into a patriarchal model. It would be reimagining, recreating, um, restructuring.
yeah,
So there's like, in my worldview, there's no feminist female billionaire unless she's like actively in the process of restructuring society, which I'm not seeing. I'm not seeing that with Kim Kardashian or Taylor Swift. Not that they don't like go through things as women and haven't experienced oppression and all these other aspects of, what it is to be female in a patriarchal world. Of course they have, but that doesn't make their actions inherently feminist just because there is some sort of like conversation around. I mean, I do think Taylor Swift kind of mentions grape culture in the sense that she mentioned someone assaulting her. Like that is, you know, something, but that's not like full feminism. It's more individualized feminism versus collective.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
this impacted me specifically. So
Right.
I will speak out on this thing that impacted me.
Yeah.
Which is kind of, I mean, like, not to digress, but it's like why intersectional feminism is such a problem. Like, why do
Yeah.
white women need to be told that feminism has to be intersectional? Like, the fact that that isn't obvious is just like a reminder that like feminism is rooted still in white supremacy because white women need to be told intersectional feminism is crucial. So if women are just trying to like be quote unquote like equal to men but are unconcerned with race, how is that feminism?
Well, and frankly, this is why feminism has had so many critiques and it's become popular and then not popular and then repopularized and then not popular over and over again because all progressive movements get co-opted by a culture rooted in capitalism and white supremacy. And I think I really like what you're saying about the intersectionality of it all. And I heard you say this in the clip that you posted from your podcast with the woman who you spoke to. How would you identify who she was?
Truth bomb mom.
Is that her name? Is that who it is? Yeah. Where you were like, here's the ways we agree, here's the ways we diverge. And then you were talking about more having like more of a Buddhist frame of reference when it comes to what does it mean to actually not be controlled. Versus like her, it seemed like her definition of that was like very individualist, where it didn't then go into like, how does that like also impact the collective, like beyond just me, which I think we also see inside of like many different forms of identity politics. But bringing it back to these billionaires and like the Taylor Swift, Kim Kardashian sort of feminist brand of it all, first of all, feminists can be TERFs. That's why, like, the trans exclusionary radical feminist, which is what TERF stands for, like, came forward. So we already know that that exists. And that's where, when that started happening, maybe that word started being tossed around, I feel like in like 2015, 2016, there was, I think, a reinvestigation around like, what does intersectional feminism mean? Then we look at Taylor Swift's albums, and what I think is an interesting connection between our work and her work is there is like a diaristic lens that's being looked through. There's a retelling of personal stories that is in alignment with feminist art and women telling their stories even before feminism was a word throughout time, like storytelling as a mechanism of healing, sharing information. It's why gossip, as goddess sip, was demonized by the church. But then what we do in grape culture, and I think what intersectional feminists do in their work, Adrienne Marie Brown, Bell Hooks, I mean, we could just like go on and list all these feminists who use intersectionality in their work. The difference is beyond the personal diaristic lens, it is then connected to a cultural analysis and this understanding of like how our stories fit into this cultural analysis and how our stories don't actually just belong to us and how there's also like not a bad guy. Because I also see that's what's happening in Taylor Swift's work where it's like always like whether it's like the diss track to Charlie XCX or all of these X's that she's written infinite songs about, there has to be like a bad guy. There has to be a villain. There has to be this like didactic black and white binary thinking, this is right and this is wrong. That model of black and white literally doesn't fit into an intersectional lens. And so we just like miss out on the context and then there isn't like it doesn't it's like not taken far enough because it doesn't have to be because you don't have to take it far enough in order to sell it. Actually, what we experience in grape culture and I think all intersectional feminists throughout time, it actually becomes harder to sell when you then like take it beyond yourself and you try to like make it about a larger cultural issue. It's not as sexy. It's not on a Target t-shirt.
Yeah, and I also think if we're going to go back to billionaires and grape culture, the hoarding aspect of a billionaire is around individuation.
Hmm.
Because obviously, not one person can spend $1 billion, not one family could spend $1 billion. Although you could like truly lose $1 billion in one day with a bad investment. You could lose multiple billions of dollars in a day. Like we've seen this happen, but you couldn't spend it. It would be very complicated to spend that kind of money. I mean, unless you were like investing in another concept. Do you know what I mean? Like, but to just spend it would be on goods and services for yourself. Like it would be very difficult. So the graping aspect of hoarding is that like how is that how is that domination without consent? We have to make this work.
Well, there's not a consideration of what is the impact of the hoarding. What is the impact?
Right,
That
and it's
question's
I
not being
just
asked.
don't think billionaires exist without exploitation. It's just impossible to make
Yes.
clean money like that. Like if you were to really investigate how the money is made and you were to say what is the impact on people, what is the impact on the planet? I don't think $1 billion can be made without negatively impacting people or negatively impacting the planet. I just don't think that's possible.
Yeah. And I think the grape culture is also the disconnect to consequence. Like, I'm just gonna fuck this person however I want and do whatever I want. Fuck this system. Fuck it. I'm just gonna do whatever I want because I have enough money that I live above the law, which is something we've talked about before with politicians and billionaires on the podcast, where it's like when you live above the law, or you could pay any amount of money to like absolve the law, then what's the point of the law? To keep the people who can't afford to live above the law oppressed and like within their little class system, which is obviously also being erased. And there's like a hegemonizing of class right now.
Well, I think that's why there's always a quote unquote war on the middle class, is because there is a conversation around like what is the ideal amount of money for a person to have, where like it's not on your mind constantly because you're in a state of distress and genuine danger, but it's also not at a place where you're in the psychological stronghold of keeping up with the Joneses, right? So there
Yeah.
is this kind of like it used to be at one point it was $100,000 a year. I can't remember what it. I don't know
For
what
the
it would be
household.
now. Yeah, I don't know what it would be now around like inflation
I mean,
and
it seems like $100,000 a person if you're like paying for health insurance and considering inflation costs of food. I mean, my jump was like 150 per person per household. One of my clients also said, shout out to Kate in the salon that's getting birthed. She was like, there's been debate around like in that same conversation, like what would like the ideal minimum wage be, like according to the inflation and like what's happened. And right now, I think she said it's like between like 40 and $50 an hour is now
yeah,
like
if we
the
were to
real.
but I think but the point I'm trying to make is less about the exact amount and more that the reason why there is a shrinking middle class and there's always a war on the middle class is there is kind of like a zone of not being desperate but not being wealthy
Yeah,
where you can like go on a vacation but you're not worried about groceries, you're not like stressing, but you're not like in this state of like excessive abundance either, and those are the happiest people
yeah,
of just having like a reasonable amount, and that whatever that reasonable amount fluctuates according to like what's happening. But I think what we are sure of is that the discrepancy and the reason why the middle class is always being like a point of attack and something that is like not actually that beneficial to society, because I know that there was like at one point, with Henry Ford, he was like, fuck, I need a class of people that have enough money to buy my products. So like a big part of like the 1950s and like how they're like, I think what a lot of times what people are referring to of like what is it, take America back, what is it, let's
Make
let's
America Great
make
Again.
America great again.
Oh,
And I was
wow.
like, what?
You're just
I,
like, this does not exist on my timeline.
I know, I was like, this doesn't sound right. So I think a part of the make America great again thing, which is obviously like we could be openly racist and like, have like segregation. That's real. I'm not saying like the race aspect of make America great and like women in kitchen and like woman sweep and woman woman you make pie while we play board games. Okay, fine, fine, fine. But also what I think is like the part of like Americana and the make America great again kind of nostalgia is around like this thriving middle class where like kind of everyone, like the majority of people were like kind of okay
Yeah. Yeah. And could like
financially.
engage in the economy in a way that was even pleasurable.
And yes, you worked at the factory for 70 years, but you worked for this amount of hours. You had your weekends off, you had like your vacation time, like you were still a cog in the machine, but you didn't have email, you didn't have like the assault of like, well, you got to stay at the office until this time and da 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 da. Like people kind of came, everyone came home at 5, and then you watch Leave It to Beaver together. Like there was a sustainability almost to the middle class that I think is a part of the Make America Great Again nostalgia fucking train,
Yeah.
because even like nothing feels sustainable right now. Being middle class doesn't feel sustainable, doesn't feel secure. Being poor is not sustainable or secure, and even being wealthy is not sustainable and secure because of such extreme volatility in the marketplace. So there's always this like maintaining of wealth and identity.
And there's just, it's distracting. It's just, I think like it is distracting, especially for the people who are wanting to create new systems. And I can't remember who this activist was. Um, Maybe their name will come to me, but they were like one of the most threatening things that we can. Oh, Sonia Renee Taylor. They were like one of the most threatening things. This was in like 2020. Um, they were like one of the most radical things we can do is to keep imagining and dreaming and being creative about a new reality because they want us to be distracted and have our consciousness oriented towards destruction because like
Okay,
we are
so
also, yes.
going back to the like feminist billionaire, it's like, why isn't the feminist billionaire using those resources to build a different way of self-organizing or society or whatever, whatever? And of course that's just one person, but a conglomerate of that. And like not all feminists have to be women, ps.
Yeah.
So it's like the fact that billionaires are in no way challenging patriarchy and in no way challenging white supremacy, regardless of your race and regardless of your gender. In fact, billionaires are reinforcing patriarchy and white supremacy inherently means that billionaires are propping up a white supremacist patriarchal society.
And I think in order to do that, you really have to be operating from a belief system that you are separate. You're separate from the collective, you're separate from God, you're
Yes.
separate from nature. And ultimately, I think that is the most suffering that one could be in, is to be in the illusion of separation. I mean, that's not my idea. That's like many philosophers' ideas across traditions and cultural, spiritual, blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, so yeah, I mean, obviously, if we just go back to Taylor Swift, like she so badly wants to belong. She so badly wants to have like a coven and a crew of people and the girlies riding for her. I also think, and I know we're running close to our time, but your hypothesis hypothesis about Taylor Swift being a lesbian is actually so funny because the more I think about it and the more I really like look at her gaze and then I like examine her work and then I see the way that like she and both Sabrina Carpenter are like with the women at their concerts. It's like when you're watching really gay shit happen, but like all of these women are still too loyal to patriarchy to understand that what's happening is actually gay and they think that it's like women's empowerment, but like, and like, yes, but also there's something very, very gay happening. And like Taylor's diss track to Charlie XCX, pornographic. Like she decided to take it there. It is
Oh, I
sexual.
haven't heard it.
Oh, it is sexual. It's
Well,
sexual.
it's often said, that like, um, men who like date a bunch of, if you're like a serial dater and you're a man and you date a bunch of women and you like refuse to commit, it's because you're gay. And that's part of it. And I think that like the reason why I was even questioning this about Taylor is more because she's making a choice, a financial choice. If she were to be a lesbian, she's making the financial choice to not live in her truth. And that is a purely financial decision. And that is grape culture.
Yeah.
It's not whether she is or she isn't is fine. It's her business. But if she is, and if she were to be hiding it, and anyone that is hiding their sexual orientation for financial reasons is graping themselves of an authentic life.
Yeah. I mean, as a gay girl, I think it's also important to say like queerness doesn't absolve you of being problematic just because people who are queer have been repressed. Like, there's actually, I think, even more examination, unfortunately, and work that like women and queer people have to do because of the level of oppression that's happened. The programming is actually so much deeper to like hate thyself and therefore want to like externalize that domination and control onto other people. Also, this cross is not because I am having a Christian evangelical awakening. I'm wearing it because it was Samhain, and I actually found this cross on the ground in Washington Square Park when I was giving Tony a witchy healing before we did our first clown show together. So just a caveat.
LOL. All right, I have to go.
Me too. All
Cool.
right.
Bye.
Bye.